Oh, I forgot my book again. Hold on.
I forgot to hold it even. I forgot momentarily.
Hold on.
This is a book club. You would never know. But,
welcome
to the Bard Book Club. Hey, let me tell.
We're talking about King Lear today. I actually have a copy of King Lear, but it's not with me.
Let me tell the Discord that we're live. That's the wrong channel.
So, King Lear. I will talk while Molly messages.
Okay.
Some general thoughts. I really like King Lear. I studied it last year in my Shakespeare class.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first play we read, which was enjoyable. And I just really like it because I was in the class, we talked about it a lot and we analyzed it, and it was just really enjoyable to like really break down everything about it.
What do you like about it? Like, what's like why?
I think it's like a really interesting story to like tell, like how he kind of loses his mind by the end, and like obviously there are moments where you're like, what the heck is that? Like what? Like I know you said you didn't feel bad for him at all, which like obviously he's done like really terrible things and everything, and I don't think it's trying to excuse that. I think it's just trying to show that like even though he's done bad things, like all of this stuff is happening to him, and it's like really sad. And I like the parallels between him and Gloucester. Mm-hmm. I think those are really well done because they both have rebellious kids, and I think that idea, like going through it and like how they like kind of meet up later and like talk about them being betrayed by their kids and everything. And then I also really like the idea of like being blind in the play. I think that's done really well because like he's like literally blind, but also like they were both blind to their kids like betraying them pretty much.
Yeah, like their kids' true nature.
Yeah, and then I also like along that line, like with the parallels between the two characters, with Gloucester, I really like how it's done with like the betrayal, because like he thinks that his one son has betrayed him, mm-hmm. when like he's actually so loyal to him, and like I just really enjoy like those storylines. Yeah, there's probably more, but like
yeah,
I enjoy like all the different parallels and stuff you can see between the characters, and like I like that even though it's not like excusing the characters, it shows that like everyone is kind of flawed and everything, you know.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it. I think it's well written. I just think it's real boring, and I basically the main thing is like it's literally to me feels like a fairy tale trope with the whole like the three daughters and the one who.
I think that's the idea. I think a lot of it is like he's inspired by fairy tales and like.
Yeah, it's just it felt too heavy-handed to me, being like, who could have seen this coming? That the daughter who didn't say she loved him the most, and then this is a thing.
Oh, you enjoy fairy tale retellings?
Yeah, but usually I feel like they're better. I just don't. I feel like it felt so too easily set up in the beginning, like the three daughters and the two being like, I love you so much, oh my god, and the one being like, I can't top that.
I love those because we like talked about that a lot, and like the way like the words that they use. I'm gonna open up the book. Hold on, I don't know where it is in this book.
Okay.
You keep talking and I'm going to find it.
Okay, so another issue I had, and this is not with this play, this is actually just an issue I have with Shakespeare's writing as a whole. It's why when people are like, oh my god, Shakespeare was like a feminist, I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I think he like respected women more than most men at the time, but I don't think he was out here like women's rights. Because the women in his plays, in tragedies, like the women die almost every time. And a lot of the time they die.
Fair, most people die in the tragedies, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But like, yeah, the women, and then in the comedies, the women tend to be like humiliated a lot, or like punished for things in a way that the male, like, and it's not like, oh, the male characters never are, but I just feel like the women, it's more heavy-handed, and so like
that's like in Supernatural. They just kill all the women characters.
Yeah, it's like Shakespeare's version of like bury your gays. It's just bury women. And it's like it's okay if it happened like once, like in Hamlet, like Ophelia's trying to help Hamlet and then it gets her killed trying to help him. So like if it, but then like it just, I feel like it keeps happening. So like Cordelia dying to help her father, like, and I also, that bothered me, and I felt like Cordelia, and like I hate this term because it is also sexist, but I don't know what else to use. The like she's a Mary Sue, like she's perfect. Do you know that term where you say like a character is a Mary Sue because they're she felt like that at times to me because we see her in the beginning and she has like a few sassy lines. I really like the line where she says, "Why have my sisters husbands if they say they love you all?" Because that was almost like, what are they, like fucking on your dick? Like, what is that? This is creepy. So I like that line, and I think she has like some sass in the beginning, but then we just don't see her for 50 pages. We don't know what the fuck she's doing, and then she comes back and is like, "I'm here to save the day," and it's like, "And I will forgive my father for being emotionally abusive and disowning me and taking all my money and damning me." And it's like, I wish we'd seen, I think I'd have no issue with the end and her if I'd seen any of her in between that doing anything and like grappling with it. Because at least in Hamlet, like you see Ophelia constantly. So you see Ophelia grappling with being in love with Hamlet, knowing that he's like going crazy and being a horribly abusive person. And the same thing with like Macbeth. So I guess my biggest issue is I just don't feel like he wrote Cordelia well enough to make the end feel impactful, because like I always feel sad when Lady Macbeth dies, especially since Macbeth is so far gone at that point. He like doesn't even give a fuck when he was like so in love with her in the beginning, and the same with Hamlet. And so it's like King Lear cared so much that Cordelia died, but I just felt like Cordelia was too flat, and she's supposed to be like important because she's like one of the turning pieces, because you know she's the daughter that should have gotten everything. So I guess that's my big issue. It's not that I like hate the whole thing as a whole, because I do, like you said, I like the parallels with like being blind to like the actual betrayal and like men can be arrogant and conceited thing. It's just Cordelia bothers me so much, and I guess that's because I played her when we did it. So like I was reading all of her stuff beforehand, and I was like, wow, this bitch really just dips out for like half the play and comes back and is like, "Don't worry, guys, I'm here," and is back for like a scene, and then we're like, "JK, now she's dead," and I was like, okay. So that's my big issue is Cordelia. And
well, also fun facts from my Shakespeare class. I think what also makes it cool is that in the different time periods since it was published, I think the first folio was published in like 17 something. I don't remember the date, but like she gave us dates. If I had my notebook here, I would read the dates, but I don't. So anyway, but after that was published, they a lot of people like obviously thought the ending was like super tragic, but then there's like a period of time when they changed the ending.
I did look that up, that they made it happy for
and so like she lives and everything, and then there was like another movement where then they were like, no, we want the tragic ending. So I think that's interesting just to see how like those ideals have changed over time.
Yeah, I mean, I for sure love a sad ending. Like,
I'm still listening. I'm just gonna see if I can find my book.
Okay, I love a sad ending for sure, and it's not even that like I have an issue with court. Like, I mean, I don't love like a woman dies to save an abusive man, but I get it. And why to end it like that? It's just I felt like the in between parts were so focused on everything but Cordelia that then being like it's I don't know. I felt like it didn't do enough to make the tragic ending feel impactful to me. Like when I read it, because I read it before we did the reading, and I was like, oh, she's dead now. Like it felt like she didn't do enough to make her dying for him matter, and like them reconciling was like so quick. She was like, it's good now. It's just I wanted more between them, because it felt like Shakespeare forgot that was supposed to be like the focal relationship, because you know that sets everything into motion is him and Cordelia, and then it dips out. So I just wanted more of not even like just her, but just of them. You know, but I didn't get that, and that's why the ending, even though like I get that it is objectively tragic, I don't feel for it at all. Like even though I don't even like Hamlet as a play, I always feel for Ophelia dying, and I always feel for Lady Macbeth dying, and I mean, like Julius Caesar, I get sad when Caesar dies. This, I was just like, oh, okay, well, like it felt like she came back just to die, And so that's my big issue with it. It's not even that like I hate the thing as a whole. I mean, like it's a little long for me. I was kind of like, we've been in the rain a hot second now. That's
Yeah.
But the main thing that bothers me is I don't like how the ending was executed. I feel like it definitely needs to end like that. Like everyone needs to die trying to protect him to prove how shitty he was.
Yeah.
But to me, that almost feels like it shows he wasn't worth protecting at all. But like, and he doesn't realize that till the end. That was my main thing. I did run a poll on our Twitter where I said, do y'all have sympathy for Lear by the end of the play? And 62% said no. So like,
how many people voted?
It says 8 people voted.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, more than just us. I was like, we're moving up in the world.
We are.
Okay,
so I'll explain to you the history of the play.
Okay.
Well, my Shakespeare professor said she thinks that this play is Shakespeare's greatest achievement, but not his best play. Okay. Direct quote. Okay, so now we have this little chart that I got going on here.
Okay.
So
love a plot chart.
It was published in 1606 on December 26th on Boxing Day. So like this was like the big Christmas play of the year. This Merry Christmas, everyone dies.
Merry Christmas, murder.
And then in 1608, the Quarto edition was published, and it was like the printed cheap edition. And it was originally titled The History of King Lear because he was a real person.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought he was fake for sure.
I'm 90% sure that he's real.
Remember when we learned Macbeth was real? That was
crazy.
That was wild.
And then in 1623, they published the folio edition. So this was like after he had died, the Friends published this edition. And they changed it to The Tragedy of King Lear, which is pretty strange considering like if it's originally published as a history, then like why change it? But like because he had changed enough from like the original story, they did it. And then in 1680, this guy named Tate rewrote. He said the ending was too sad, and he rewrote it to make it happy. And then in the late 18th, early 19th century, the people were like, it's not really sad, it's sublime, like it's redemptive, and like he grows from the suffering. And like, so it's like beautiful and terrifying at the same time. And then it's all downhill from there. In the 1900s to the 1960s, everyone was like, it's sad, but life is too. And so then they said, it's too sad, but it's real, so it's okay.
As Mar would say, ain't that just the way?
Exactly. So, and that's where we still are, that it's like sad, but like life is as well. So like it's fine.
Yeah. So why did your teacher say it's his greatest achievement but not his best? What did she mean by that?
That like she thinks he has better plays, but she thinks that this one is like so well done and like put together that like it's his best work.
But how is that different from his best play? Wouldn't his best play be his best work?
No, because like you can, how do you describe it? Words.
I just don't get it.
What are words? I think what she means is that like this one is so like well put together, like the story is like well put together and everything. But then like if you're like watching a play, I think
it's not as entertaining.
Yeah, I think the experience of watching like something like Macbeth.
Yeah, I was like, agreed as a people that Macbeth was the best one.
Yeah, but like that, like this was his greatest achievement in terms of like writing.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Is this what happened to the real King Lear?
I don't know.
It doesn't sound right because, like, how could that be? Like, how could that be a real political meeting? To be like, who loves me the most? Okay, you get that chunk of the country. Like, that can't possibly.
I don't know how much of it is real.
I'll Google it. Hold on. You get started on characters.
Well, hold on. I have some more history.
Okay, go for it.
In 1606, when it was like first playing, James I from Scotland was on the throne. And he had the Basilicum Coram, where he didn't want to divide the kingdom, and that was like the king's philosophy on politics. Okay. And so he wanted to melt the crowns down and merge them so that Scotland would become part of England.
Oh, so he's responsible for that bullshit.
Yeah. So then it was Shakespeare's first play about like dividing a kingdom. Mm-hmm. And since King James was like in the audience for the first performance, like it was really playing towards him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Mary, Queen of Scots' son, who did unite. Who the Scots didn't really respect, since he just like handed Scotland over to England.
Yeah.
I did some Googles. Or do you have more?
That it's a palimpsest.
What does that mean?
That it's a manuscript or piece of writing material on which like original writing has been effaced to make room for later writing, but then like the traces of the original show through. So like if there's words on a page and then you write words over top that page, then like something's underneath what you've already written. You know what I mean?
Over a VHS, like.
It's like say I have these words on the page, and then say I wrote like it horizontally, and I wrote more things.
Oh, okay.
That like it's like layered. So like there's like a literary version of the palimpsest where like there's another story on top of like the pre-existing story. So if you look at like the Book of Genesis and then Paradise Lost and then Frankenstein.
Oh, okay.
It's like the hypotext and then the hypertext.
Okay, got it.
So like Cordelia is Cinderella. Like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay, that tracks. So according to the Googles, he was Lear of Britain. Lear was a legendary king of the Britons whose story was recounted by Geoffrey of Monmouth in his pseudo-psychological 12th century history of King Lear of Britain first. And his reign was around the 8th century BC, around the time of the founding of Rome. And then it was modified and retold by Shakespeare in his Jacobean tragedy King Lear. Yeah, that was like a Jacobite thing. Because Shakespeare really hated Elizabeth I, so it makes sense that when King was in the audience, Shakespeare would be like, "What up, fuck Queen Elizabeth?" So it says, Geoffrey of Monmouth identified Lear as the I'm not going to say this right. Eponymous founder of the city of Leicester. And then it says, under reign, his story was first recounted by this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, abdication. Lear was said to have been the end of Brutus of Troy's male line of descent, sparing 3 daughters. As he neared his death, he divided the kingdom among them. Goneril and Regan flattered their father at the advice of Lear's nobles and were married off to dukes of Albany and Cork. So they were told to do that in real life. Supposedly, it wasn't their own idea. Cordelia, despite being her father's favorite, refused to flatter him, feeling that he should not need to make special assurances of her love, and was given no land to rule. King Agenippus of the Franks courted and married her, despite the refusal. Restoration. At this point, Lear feared both his older daughters and fled to France. He sent Cordelia a messenger. So I guess it was super accurate, which is crazy since most of his other stuff could not be less accurate to what happened if he tried. Like Macbeth is the most inaccurate thing in the world.
Yeah.
Cleopatra's inaccurate. Julius Caesar isn't awfully inaccurate, but it's also Lear is spelled different. It's spelled Leir. So that's
interesting.
I don't know why he changed it. So that's crazy that it's actually super accurate. I would have just automatically assumed it wasn't.
Yeah.
Here's 10 dramatic facts about King Lear. Let's learn. Okay, so it's true. Okay, the first known production is what you said in front of James I. There are multiple versions, which is what. Look at you. You know everything in this mental floss article. It has. It was banned from the English stage during the reign of King George III. So that was during the American Revolution, right?
Yeah.
That's so weird. King Lear wasn't ever intended to portray a living king. Its main character hit too close to home during the reign of King George III. The monarch was plagued with periods of insanity, and he was both blind and deaf when he died on January 29, 1820. Out of sensitivity, all performance of any version of King Lear were banned during King George's reign between 1810 to 1820. The fictional monarch's mental illness paralleled the real-life ruler struggles just a little too much.
That's funny though.
It is funny. It says King Lear contains a lot of references to nature. George Bernard Shaw loved King Lear. Leo Tolstoy hated it. Why did Tolstoy hate it? It says War and Peace author didn't care for Shakespeare's writing. He particularly liked King Lear, he described it as an exaggerated plot with pompous, characterless language. This says the guy who wrote a 1,600-page book, too long.
Right.
Freud thought Cordelia symbolized death in King Lear. That's
interesting.
That I can see that. He said, Freud thought that the daughters represented the mythical three fates, and that Cordelia was Atropos, the Greek
goddess,
the Greek goddess of death, since she refuses to speak when Lear asks her to profess love. By rejecting Cordelia, the aging king is essentially rejecting death itself. A version of King Lear has been performed with sheep. In 2014,
I love that.
English playwright Heather Williams added levity to King Lear by staging an adaptation called King Lear with Sheep. It told the oh-so-meta tale of a director character who decides to perform the Shakespearean tragedy using woolly ungulates as cast members. When the sheep won't cooperate, the director suffers a mental breakdown and begins acting out the narrative himself. The TV show Empire is based on King Lear. Oh, shit, really?
Oh, that makes sense.
That's crazy. I didn't even know.
I think I did know that.
I had no idea. That makes sense, though. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you have it. Do you want to talk about characters? You talked a little bit about Gloucester and stuff. Okay, 1 second. I'm listening. My dog's just...
Okay.
Wendy, come here.
I'll talk about so the first scene, this isn't necessarily characters. This is very specific towards the characters. So I really enjoy, we talked about this a lot in my class. We took a long time to get through this first scene. But in the first scene,
let me open up here. Let me realign.
Yes. When they, I'll start at the first part. So my teacher, she thought that he should have started it later.
When should he have? I feel like almost all of Shakespeare's plays should start like
a little bit later. She thought it should start when he says, "Hand me the map" or something, like "Give me the map here."
Where is that?
Which is like, this doesn't have lines, so.
Well, no, I'll find it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we shall express our darker purpose. Give me the map here.
Oh.
But she thought that it was interesting that he had decided to start earlier, which means that like that original part of I thought the king had more affected the Duke of Albany than Cornwall, like that's vital to the plot. You know what I mean? That like he thought that he likes him better.
Okay.
And then for what's really interesting is like when you read the two sisters like confessions of love for their father, like, "Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty." Like she loves him more than space. Like what? And then also like the eyesight fact that like then later comes back into play. Mm-hmm. And then like beyond what can be valued, rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honor, as much as child e'er loved or father found. A love that makes breath poor and speech unable, beyond all manner of so much I love you. And then it's like how can you even like say that you love someone that much?
Yeah.
Like more than space.
It doesn't.
It doesn't even make sense.
It's like how often were you thinking about your love for space? Like,
yeah. And then how Regan then goes, I am made of that self-metal as my sister, and prize me at her worth. In my true heart I find she names my very deed of love, only that she comes too short. And it's like she just said she loves him more than space and eyesight and everything. It's like, and yet she's too short. That I profess myself an enemy to all other joys, which the most precious square of sense possesses, and find I am alone felicitate in your dear highness's love. And it's like, what the fuck does that even mean?
It doesn't track.
Yeah. And then I just like how she says, "Nothing, my lord."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then "Nothing will come of nothing, speak again." And the fact that, like, obviously she loves him more than anyone else.
Actually, my favorite line in the play, I've already said it, but it is Cordelia on that same page. "Why have my sisters husbands if they say they love you all?"
Exactly, yeah. That's what I was going to talk about as well. Like,
it's so, like, fuck them. Like, what they're doing is so fake. Like,
yeah, she's just definitely calling them out. Because it's like, how can they say that they love someone enough to marry them and yet say
and
that
also, like, you know, like, they're saying, like, they profess their love to him the way you would to, like, someone you were in love with, and it's, like, okay, incest. Like...
Yeah, exactly. And like how she says, "I love your majesty according to my bond, no more, nor less." And it's like, exactly, you love him as you should love a father.
Way for a daughter to love her father.
Like you're not exaggerating it at all, you know?
Yeah.
And also, what we discussed, which was interesting, was that like he's dividing up the kingdom as he's doing this, but he obviously had favoritism and he loved Cordelia the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he says, what can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters? But like if he's dividing up the map as he's speaking, like he saved the best part for her, only for her to reject it.
Yeah.
Which is like, damn.
It was like he was like, I love you the most, but you need to like prove that you deserve to be loved the most because I can't just love my children freely. Like they, you know, it's it's a toxic love.
Yeah. And I think my favorite line is "Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again."
I would have just said bullshit. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't have done what she did. I would have been like, oh my God, they don't even know. Like, I would have fucked it up. I would not have, like, we get it, bitch. You're like noble and honest. But when he was like, speak again, I would have been like, JK, actually, like,
I love you way more than them.
I guess that's again why I felt like she was somewhat of a Mary Sue because, like, realistically, like, by doing that, she knew she was ruining her own life. Like, it started to become clear that that's what was going on.
Yeah.
And, like, it got to the point where I was like, all right, use your head. Like, just fake some shit. And, like, I get it. Then there's no fucking plot. But, like, I don't know. It was the, like, relying on, like, the virginal, like, innocent, good woman trope, which is, like, I don't know. You rarely see that in, like, a male character. And again, like, it's Shakespeare. I get it. The man wasn't a feminist. Like, he wasn't out here like, oh, boy, let me empower women left and right. Like,
to be fair, he is leaving all of his stuff to the women.
Because there's no men.
Exactly.
He's only leaving it to women because there's no other option. Like,
yeah. We love to see it. No other option.
We love it when you're like, well, fuck, guess this is because this was far enough back that they hadn't like invented all the rules in England about the line of succession. Like this was, if this happened like a few centuries later, it would have been like they would have found like a long lost cousin or some shit who was a man. Yeah. Been like, oh, okay, you're the one who gets everything now. Because women actually like prior to like the medieval era ruled all the time without because like it could still happen if you like really couldn't find someone. Like that's how like the Tudors and like Mary Queen of Scots happened.
Yeah.
In the modern world, we're like a woman president. No.
Speaking of just like the characters in general, I think Edmund is also just like a really interesting character in general.
Yeah.
Because like he's the bastard son, you know. And it's so blunt how like mistreated Gloucester, like how terrible he is to his son. Because in most of the productions, like I know in the one that we saw, in that first scene when like Edmund is like standing there, and then the Earl of Kent and the Earl of Gloucester are like next to him, and he says, "Is this?" He says, "Is not this your son, my lord?" And he says, "His breeding, sir, hath been at my charge. I have so often blushed to acknowledge him that now I am braced to it. His breeding hath been at my charge." Yeah, I mean, like I had sex with her to have him.
The line, when Cordelia's like leaving and says goodbye to her sisters, "The jewels of our father with washed eyes, Cordelia leaves you." Can you explain what that means? Because you understand Shakespeare better than I do.
Where is that?
It's yours doesn't have lines. It's
okay.
It's like after the whole dowry thing, and she's getting ready to leave with her new husband, and she says to her sisters, "The jewels of our father, which with washed eyes, Cordelia leaves you. I know what you are, and like a sister, am most loath to call you your faults as they are named. Love well our father." Like, I low-key get what she's saying, but I don't 100% get what she's saying because I don't understand.
Hold on, I'm going to look it up online.
Okay.
Solely because I can't find it in my text.
It's like after the whole dowry thing. Like, "I yet beseech your majesty, if for what I want that glib and oily art to speak and purpose not." Like, it's around that area. While Bridget does that, guys, look how sick this edition is. Oh my goodness, stunning.
Beautiful.
It's the Pelican Shakespeare.
We love to see it.
I have a shirt, a Romeo and Juliet T-shirt that has this version of this style for Romeo and Juliet on it.
Nice.
Fucking love Romeo and Juliet.
Can you say the quote again?
Yes, it is. The jewels of our father, with washed eyes, Cordelia leaves you.
Is this, who says it?
Cordelia.
Oh, I see it. So this one, I looked it up on SparkNotes just so I could see the translation to modern text.
Mm-hmm.
Sisters, you whom our Father loves so dearly, I leave you now with tears in my eyes. I know you for what you really are, but as your sister, I'm reluctant to criticize you. Take good care of our Father and show him the love that you have professed. I leave him in your care, but oh, if only I were still in his favor, I could arrange for better care for him. Goodbye to you both.
Okay, I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you guys fucking suck, but as your sister, I'm hesitant to say so.
Yeah. Exactly.
I like when she says a little after that too, after they're like basically like, shut up, bitch, like we know what we're doing, and she says, time shall unfold what plighted cunning hides, who cover faults that last with shame derides. Well may you prosper.
Yeah, she's like, time will tell that you're.
It's like, well, we'll see. But then they win in the end anyway, so like.
I mean, no one really wins.
I mean, yeah, but they're not,
They're dead at the end too.
That's true, but everyone dies.
Oh, but talking about Edmund, like he says, it's not my son. He's just like saying like, I had sex with her to make him, but like he's not really my son.
He's always my son. I love him.
Yeah, and he's like, so like you feel bad for Edmund at first, you're like, oh my God, he's saying all this terrible stuff right in front of him. And he's like, sir, this young fellow's mother could, whereupon she grew round wombed, and had indeed, sir, a son for her cradle, ere she had a husband for her bed. Do you smell a fault? And he says, I cannot wish the fault to be undone, the issue of it being so proper. And he's like, I do have a son by law, who's a year older.
Okay.
Talking about Edgar, and he's like, though this knave came something saucily into the world before he was sent for, yet was his mother fair. It's like, yeah, I mean, his mother was hot. Therefore, it was good sport at his making, and the whore son must be acknowledged.
Wow. Okay.
He literally he says that, and then he says to him, do you know this noble gentleman, Edmund? So, like, they're saying this right in front of him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's the worst, but, she was a good lay.
She's good in bed, so
I guess it's fine. And like he's basically just like saying all this terrible stuff, and so you feel bad for him. You're like, Gloucester is not great, like he kind of sucks. But then like by the end of the play, you're like, Edmund sucks, and Gloucester, I mean, like he's not so bad.
Yeah.
Like we did this little diagram, and it says sympathy. Is Edmund and Gloucester.
So you already touched on it a little in the beginning, but do you want to walk us through the themes of King Lear?
Yeah. Let me pull up my notes.
I'm just here for the ride. Bridget's teaching this class. I'm just that sounds good to me. I'll teach next month because I've studied next month.
I've also studied next month.
No, don't worry. You're teaching right now, so like.
It's okay. I took a whole Shakespeare class.
I did too. We just didn't read this one.
That's fine.
There's 37. You can't do them all in one semester. Can you imagine if you had a Shakespeare class that was like, we're going to read them all?
I don't think there's enough weeks I think you need like a whole year class for that.
You would, yeah. It would have to be like part 1 and part 2.
Yeah. Okay, so there's
we're reading 4 plays a week. Let's go.
Exactly. So there's loyalty. Punishment. Anagnoris, which is
what is that?
Which is a moment when a character realizes they did something wrong.
Okay.
Power and like the use and abuse of power. There's action versus word.
Okay.
There's madness, and then like the recognition of that madness, and just like generally mental instability. And then there's identity, and there's justice, and authority versus like chaos. And then like reconciliation kind of sort of thing where like, you know, Lear and Cordelia come together at the end. And then also just kind of like self-acknowledgement and like knowing yourself, because as Lear goes mad, like he's
this might be
stuff like I'm a foolish fond man.
This might be a huge stretch, but I just had this thought. Do you think that King Lear, the character, and Thanos have some parallels in how they view power and control? Because when you said like power versus chaos, because like Thanos thinks he's gonna end chaos and he's gonna end problems, and if everyone just like, and he has his thing with his daughters, and like Gamora was his favorite daughter, but Nebula was actually the one who was like way more dedicated to pleasing him. But you know,
but in that sense, like Cordelia was his favorite, and she was also.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying like exact. Obviously, it's not like I'm like Thanos is the reimagining of King Lear. But when you said like power versus chaos, I just started thinking about how like, you know, Thanos' plan to like bring peace and like equalize all of the universes ended up just like destroying him.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think also because like in this play, like there's like the stable order that is there at the beginning, and then as like it goes on, like it all falls apart because of what he did. And in that same sense, Thanos, like there was a stable order at the end, and then like once he did the snap, like everything kind of fell apart.
And he didn't necessarily go mad, but like, you know, in the beginning of Endgame, he's like in solitude and destroyed the stones because they were too powerful. And in doing that, like his children, like the Avengers, who are like the younger people involved in this, and spoilers, everybody. And so, no, you said that, and I was like, while you were explaining the themes, I was since like I was thinking about how like Empire is inspired by this, so I was trying to think of other characters that are like King Lear, and my mind was like Thanos.
Yes.
Have it, guys. Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. King Lear retellings. We should have watched Endgame.
Oh my god, a missed opportunity.
We'll find a way to make it something.
We should have watched Cinderella by those standards, because Cordelia.
Oh my god, good point. Good point. That makes me think of have you seen Ever After with Drew Barrymore?
Maybe.
In the end, she like doesn't do what Cordelia does and isn't like so kind. She's like, I only ask that you show these women. She's like, Your Majesty, I only ask that you show these women the same kindness that they have shown me. And they're all like, oh my god. And then it like cuts to them like working in like this like laundry sweatshop because they made her be a slave. So
that's
like
funny.
It's funny. But no, yeah, I guess that's is there anything in like, because like the Freud thought they were the fates. Do you think there's anything else in mythology that parallels like Cordelia? Because like there's definitely I can't remember the exact fairy tale. David said something in the Discord of what fairy tale was like King Lear. When I was reading it, I immediately thought of Stardust by Neil Gaiman, because Stardust has the thing with the king and it's all of his sons. I
haven't read Stardust.
Have you seen Have you seen the movie?
No.
Okay, so in Stardust, there's like in the magic world, there's like a wall that separates like our world and the magic world, and you learn this like fairy tale of the king going mad in the magic world, and he's like dying, and he has a bunch of sons. He's like 5 or plus sons, and he's like, he's like, only one of you will get the kingdom, and it's like whoever can prove that they love me the most. So obviously like they try to kill each other and shit because they're all men, and they're like those.
Well, that is, yeah, it sounds like it's just the same thing. Yeah
so but like it's like it only lasts like it's like the backstory, so it's like this flashback you get like them going insane and killing each other. And I can't remember like, but there are fairy tales that's like who loves me the most, and then it's like the person who doesn't shout it. I also thought about how, what is the fairy tale? It's not a fairy tale. Well, it could be. It's in the Bible, so it's a fairy tale. And it's the thing. What the hell is it called? With the baby, and there's 2 moms, and they both say they're the mom, and they say, okay, then we'll
cut it in half.
And then the real mom says, never mind. And then they're like, that's the real mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I guess, that theme of like, if you actually love someone the most, you don't need to be shouting it all the time. There's a Taylor Swift song, I Think He Knows, where she says, and I don't gotta tell him, I think he knows. But like that idea, thing. But the idea of like, it's almost as if, like, I mean, it's like he didn't deserve Cordelia's love. Like, he was all like, oh, she doesn't deserve to be my favorite unless she professes my love. And it's like, actually, the fact that you required that she say she love you all the time shows that you didn't deserve her love.
Yeah.
Ain't that just a way? Ain't that just a man?
It really is.
You want to say more fun dialogue that you like? I said the ones I liked. And I liked, hold on. I only highlighted a few.
Obviously, I really like the nothing will come of nothing.
Yeah, I really like the why have my sister's husbands if they love you all, and I like.
I like how we like all the things in the first scene. You know,
I like everything Cordelia says. And I highlighted this thing Edmund said, and I think this is still in the first scene. Oh no, this is scene 2. So we're really.
Oh my god, flex. We're making it past scene 1.
Scene 1 just really slaps. You know, like
it does. It's okay. We spent like a whole 2 classes on scene 1.
It's like, you know how like, you know, the first song of Evermore was Willow, and like it just went so hard that it was like, how are we supposed to move past that song to Champagne Problems? So Edmund says in scene 2, this is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, often the surfeits of our own behavior, we make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and the stars, as if we were villains on necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and treachers by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence, and all that we are evil in by our divine thrusting on. So that gave me like an idea of like a very long way of saying the idea of like the fault's not in the world, it's in ourselves. So like how in Julius Caesar he says, the fault, dear Brutus, is not in ourselves, but in ourselves. And so it's the idea of like we can blame like the world we're in all we want, but in the end we do what we do. And so the idea of like this is the excellent foppery of the world that we go, oh, it's because of this that I did this. And it's like, no, you did it because you're a bad person or because you thought it was okay to do X, Y, and Z. So like Lear can be like, it's I guess the idea is like you said, Edmund's interesting is I don't think he ever tries to justify what he's doing, whereas like Lear tries to justify how abusive he is, and Goneril and Reagan try to justify how fucked up they are, and he's just like, we can do that all we want, but we're choosing to do this. No one's making us.
Yeah, and I think Edmund is also interesting because he is like probably one of the best villains in Shakespeare because he is so just like
he's like
bad.
He's like, I'm the villain. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. He owns the fact that he's the villain.
Yeah, I like in the movie how they did it. That was good.
Yeah. So okay, I'll read to you some more. This is Act 1, Scene 2. We've made it to the second scene.
Whoa. Okay.
This is, however, the very start of the second scene. When he's reading alone, he says, "Thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound. Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me, for that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother." And then I really like this line, "Why bastard, wherefore base?" I think that's a really good line because it's like, why? It's just kind of like asking, like, why does he have to be in this situation? And, like, you still sort of feel bad for him at this point, but then, like, he immediately is like, nah. And he says, "Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund, as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed, and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper, now God stand up for the bastards." And he's just kind of saying, like, well, Edgar might be a legitimate son. I'm going to beat him and, like, take his place. Which I think is interesting because, like, his motivation for, like, self-improvement motivates him to, like, create these false set of circumstances that Gloucester believes. And, like, I talked about this in an essay where I compared Lear to Much Ado About Nothing, which is an interesting set.
Yeah, that's quite a pairing to put there.
Yeah, but I talked about how like misinformation spreads very quickly and spins out of control when people immediately believe what they hear. Because in this play, like, you know,
when
it's like
has that ever happened?
someone hears something and they immediately believe it, and they're like, yes, that is fact. So like Edmund's like, you know, this letter is from Edgar and he said that he wants to kill you and take your inheritance. And instead of like questioning that at all, Gloucester's immediately like, wow, he wants to murder me. I believe you wholeheartedly. Like, why would you hide this from me? And like, I guess in that circumstance, like obviously like Gloucester like was kind of tricked in the sense that like Edmund act like, oh, I don't want to show you the letter. Like, I feel bad. Like, it's not meant for you. But like he still did like immediately believe it without ever like actually testing that theory. And like they often do that in Shakespeare plays, which is obviously like to further the plot and everything. But I think that's also like very it's like a very good job of like demonstrating how like as humans we do kind of take things as fact until like we find out otherwise, you know?
Yeah, it's the like you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but we tend to have the mindset of you're guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly. And like what I did when I was comparing them, I said that like they have very similar circumstances because a character receives a false piece of information from another person or group in order to deceive them. So like in this, Gloucester steals the letter from Edmund's hands and learns of Edgar's plot to kill him and inherit his wealth and status. And like Edgar's very opinion in the letter, which Edmund carefully aligned with his own interest, betrays everything that Gloucester believed about his son. And then like in Much Ado, there are like 3 instances where there's like gullings, which we can talk about that when we get to that play in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like one of the last plays we're doing.
Yeah, it is.
But like there's a lot of like eavesdropping in that play, where and like sometimes the characters know that there's eavesdropping, so like they're like coerced to believe that like other characters are in love with them. So like there's Benedict and Beatrice, and like like, oh my god, like one of Benedict's friends is like, oh my god, I can't believe Beatrice is in love with him.
It's miscommunication. It's like in Shrek when he thinks Fiona's talking about him.
Exactly. Great comparison.
I'm just trying to tie everything from January together.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Shrek has parallels.
Exactly. And so like I think like the idea that they're like fooled and like just like believing immediately, I think that's very like a very human quality that he shows in this, which I think is like done really well. And like in this also, like it doesn't take very much. Like Gloucester's like, is this his handwriting? And Edmund's like, yeah.
It's like when 3 women you've never seen show up in a cornfield and they're like, you're gonna be the king, and you're like, that tracks.
Yeah, exactly. You're immediately like, sounds real.
And when they're like, oh, this guy died just now, and they said, I'm like, all right, well, you were at war, motherfucker. Like, that's not crazy. That's somebody you left the war 30 seconds ago. So yeah, that's a theme, I guess, in Shakespeare is like poor communication. Yeah.
And like they don't even really like question it as much. Like they just like, yeah, sounds true.
This might be a stretch, right? But I do like to think about often how Shakespeare really hated the Tudor line, which fair, they suck. Queen Elizabeth I, and he was a Jacobite, and but even more so than that, like he was a closeted Catholic. So even if he wasn't like straight up on Scotland's side, because he was English, he still didn't like the rule before King James. So the idea of like poor communication between important people leads to really bad stuff is like poor communication, and like framing someone with a letter is like literally what got Mary Queen of Scots killed and led to like Queen Elizabeth to have this very long bloody reign. And I think like I've always said that I think the reason there's so many Henry plays is literally just to like propagandate toward Queen Elizabeth, was just to like peddle to her so that she wouldn't like look too close. Because like I'm pretty sure Macbeth came out while she was still on the throne, and she was fucking pissed about it because she thought that he was like jibing at her, which like I'm sure he fucking was. So probably like again with King Lear, since King James I came to see it, King James I infamously did not go to his mother's execution and basically had like no thanks to her for giving him England, which she did. And so I wonder if, again, like he, you know, like knew, like Shakespeare had no respect for royalty, which why would, and it's so obvious in his plays because the royals just make fucking idiots out of themselves. Like if you notice, like the comedies are never about the royals.
Yeah.
It's about regular people. And then the tragedies where everyone fucking dies, it's always really rich people. Like Shakespeare really said eat the rich before the Gen Zs did. And so
Yeah.
the themes of miscommunication really come into play a lot.
They do.
Do you want to talk about the movie now? We have like a few minutes left.
Yeah, and then I have a word cloud that we can look at.
Love that for us. So let's just talk about the movie real quick. This is my one note. Florence Pugh. Oh, there was one other line I like, and it's just real quick. I like when Lear says, "Then he says like, who am I then?" And the fool says, "Lear's shadow," because he's like becoming like a shell of himself, basically. Mm-hmm. I like that line. But the movie, Florence Pugh, performance of a lifetime. That's about all I have to say about the movie. Is I think Anthony Hopkins is great and everything. Yeah. This, The Grinch, just time.
Yeah.
But she was really good in it. I thought it was interesting that they were in modern clothes.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who was Edmund, fucking like, ooh, he was good. He was intense as fuck.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Some other fun quotes that I liked. When we are born, we cry that we are come to this great stage of fools.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I think the fool also is like a really interesting character in this. We haven't really talked about him, but like we talked about him a lot in my class because
he's very prophetic.
Yeah, exactly. Like he knows kind of everything that's going on, and he's able to kind of tell King Lear like the truth about himself. And then there's like a lot of parallels between him and King Lear about like how then he relates to him.
I think that plays again because the fools are always like the smartest people in Shakespeare plays. In Shakespeare tragedies, most of the time, like there's fools in some comedies. Like I fucking stand the 12th Night Fool. He's amazing. I love him.
Yeah,
especially in the movie. But in tragedies, like the fools always know what's up, and I think again that plays into Shakespeare being like rich people fucking suck and screw themselves over. Royalty screws themselves over, and it's the poor working man that actually can see what's going on because working class people like Shakespeare can see past all the royal bullshit to who people actually are. Mm-hmm. And so the fool was like, Lear, this is who you actually are. This is what you're actually doing, and this is why nothing good's gonna come to pass. And he's like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm the king. So
and then another quote I like is when Lear says, I am a man more sinned against than sinning. Because like that's kind of accepting that like yes, he's done a lot of terrible things, but like the way like he still doesn't deserve
that also has that energy of like, why does everything happen to me? Because it's like you're the fucking king. Like people are dying.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Like, it's like, again, yes, he's having so much awful stuff happen to him, but it then does also play into, like, for royals, everything's about them. And, like, the worst thing that can happen to them is to lose their power. Whereas, like, meanwhile, like, Shakespeare, while he's writing this shit, is, like, starving. And, like, his actors can barely afford to pay rent. And then, like, the royals he writes about are like, oh, no. I don't own everything anymore. What am I going to do? Like, even Cordelia, like, obviously she gets hanged, but before that, the worst thing that happens to her is she doesn't have money anymore. And, like, obviously she's a woman and, like, her value was in her money. But that's the worst punishment we can enact on essentially a princess is to be like, well, you're not wealthy now. It's like, wow.
The horror.
No stimulus check for you, Cordelia. Let's look at your word cloud.
One sec. I have two more quotes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
When he says, oh, let me kiss that hand, and then Lear says, let me wipe it first. It smells of mortality.
Mortality, yeah. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. And then, actually, I have a few more. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to read them really quickly.
Okay.
Love's not love when it is mingled with regards that stand aloof from the entire point.
Mm-hmm.
And then, 'tis the time's plague when madmen lead the blind.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when he's like raging and he's saying, oh, let me not be mad, not mad, sweet heaven, keep me in temper, I would not be mad.
Mm-hmm.
But like just like how he does kind of steadily go crazy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen and I'll show you the word cloud.
It's like another parallel to how in Henry IV Part 2 when he says heavy is the head that wears the crown. It's like
exactly.
It's as they say to Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibilities. in a way, Spider-Man has been. I'm just going to start being like, how many ridiculous things can I say? If you think about it, Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses, which some of us watched the other night, the power that Rowena is trying to get is what hurts her in the end.
Exactly. So here's our word cloud.
Nice. I'm going to make a word cloud for next month.
This has all of the words from the play.
How does that have all of them?
This is the whole script except and I took out the headings, when it says their name, I took that out.
Ever say those words?
What?
The words in that cloud are the only words ever said?
No, okay, so wait,
doesn't
you know how when you put all the so 2 points here. That it's when you make a word cloud and then these are the words that are most said.
Yes.
So that's what this is.
Okay.
And except how when it says the character's name before they speak, all of those are taken out. So the dialogue tags are all taken out.
It's interesting that good and man are said so much.
Yeah, that's what I really talked about the usage of good in my essay here.
Yeah, and if you notice these are
all down here. Here's the use of good in the play.
Well, and again, that it's all about giving the power to these three women, but then it's man, gentleman, sir. I see.
Yeah, and then down here, I looked up what was before and after. Fortune's good daughter.
Man, we didn't do shit in my Shakespeare class compared to this. We just sat around and we're like, what do you think they mean? Okay, and then moved on.
And then here's charts, usages of the relative frequencies within the play.
Okay.
Yeah, this was just a fun thing because we had a tool.
I got some graphs next month. My God, we got to step this the fuck up.
Yeah, and I said here that I thought I saw the word good was one of the largest words, and I thought it was a bit strange considering the play is a tragedy. Yeah,
that's interesting. And heart. It's interesting, and
they say father a lot, which makes sense.
And all the opposites, fool and king, would be considered opposites, and and gentleman.
And there's old, and poor.
That's interesting.
Speak.
It's interesting that Edmund is one of the words said the most.
Yeah. And then also just I think the idea that speak is one of the larger words too is interesting because it's as if they're commanding someone to speak, telling them that they need to. Because there are a lot of times when Lear says in the first scene when he's dividing up the thing, he's speak more, he says say more things unless you don't want anything.
When really saying less meant more.
Yeah. And there's art and daughters.
Do you have any final things you want to say before I talk about what we're doing next month?
Not really.
Okay, so next month I
will say one thing.
Okay, what?
That I just think that this is a really interesting play, and I think based on especially based on our discussion that it's interesting, kind of how you can see it in so many different versions of media, the same story. So even though it is a very typical story, I think he does a good job of
Can I relate it to real life real quick too?
Palimpsest. That's the word of the day. Palimpsest
is in real life in America. Trump supporters are much louder than Biden supporters, but in the end, obviously the quest for power literally drove Trump insane, and it ruined his life. And so again, it's the heavy is the head that wears the crown. A quest for power will usually cause you to lose power. It's in Game of Thrones, they always say the person most worthy of being the king is the one who does not wish to be the king. Yeah. Well, because my sister says to be the president, you have to be even just a little bit of a sociopath, because the idea that you can be who should be in charge of the free world? Me. Like, who should get the launch codes? Me. Like, I can't fathom thinking that about myself. Okay, so next month, I'm so excited because this is the first Shakespeare play I ever read in my life, and it is tied with Julius Caesar for my favorite play, and I get it, like, it's so basic. Everyone's always thinks they're cool by going, there's better plays. No, there's not. I love this. We're doing Romeo and Juliet because next month is Valentine's Day. So the day before Valentine's Day, my copy's over there. It's cute, I swear. The day before Valentine's Day on the 13th is when we'll be doing our reading at 9 p.m. EST on this channel. As usual, we'll have an event link up soon on our Instagram and Twitter, which is at @bard_book. That's where we keep everyone updated. Movie night will be on the 19th at 8 p.m. EST, and we're watching High School Musical. Whenever I say that's a Romeo and Juliet retelling on TikTok, people are always like, oh, shit, you're right. So we will be watching that. And then the discussion, again, here will be on the 26th. And I'm very excited because, spoiler alert, we will be playing Romeo and Juliet, us two.
Shocking, I know. Never
the leads. When does that happen?
Crazy.
Us playing a romantic couple?
It's almost like it's like never happened before.
It's such a different thing for us to do. I think everyone's going to really be taken back by the creativity we're going to bring.
If someone took a shot every time we were romantic leads.
Yeah, every time. Yeah, not the leads, but romantic leads. Like, not even just in this, but just in general. Like, the times that we played characters that people have shipped. Like, even like YB and Caroline and Beetlejuice and Lydia. We're like, how many times can we play the couples? Like, we're like, I think Michelle said that she thought it was funny that every time there's like a big male role, it's either like you or Percy playing it. Like, we never give it to a guy. We're like, oh, one of the the big male role. Well, let's not give that to a man.
It's like, well, you know who? We have Percy Jackson right here. So obviously Molly will play.
We're like, oh, JD and Heather's Percy. Percy will play that. Like, and even when and it's like, King Lear, Julius Caesar, Macbeth. Who should play that? Women? I think it's like
where else are women gonna play them?
We're making up for how in Shakespeare's time women couldn't be.
Exactly. I mean, this is what Shakespeare would have wanted.
He dreamed of the day that only women on a computer screen would play his character. That just a bunch of queer women and non-binary people would play all the parts in his shows. He secretly, his closeted queer self was like, yes. He's like, he's up there in heaven right now.
Women playing most of the roles, that checks out.
He was like, queer people playing most of the role, making everything gay. That's what I wanted the whole time.
I mean, mostly men did play all the roles, so yeah.
Yeah, I always say you can find gayness in most Shakespeare plays, even Henry IV Part 2, like Falstaff. Come on, that man's not straight. Anyway, so yeah, that was our discussion on King Lear.
Thanks for coming.
Check our Twitter and our Instagram. I'm also going to try to be running like more polls and fun stuff on the Twitter. Like, we have the poll, like, do you have sympathy for King Lear? So I'm going to run other polls this month, like, because there's a big argument. Like, obviously Romeo and Juliet's a tragedy, and some people argue that you should like never view it as a romance and blah blah blah. So we're gonna be talking about that stuff on Twitter and Instagram, and make sure you follow them because then you'll know when we're going live.
Yeah. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.